Yeah, so uh let's continue with this simple rating web app that we started with last week. We are able to set up the projects, set up the assets, and at the same time set up our components by working on the box, the container, and the title and the text, which is what we have currently here. And again, we are able to conditionally render two sections inside a box where we have the one for where you are going to, or where the user are going to pick the stuff. I can hear myself back. You have to mute your mic. Yeah, so we are able to build this, but we're going to continue from where we stop by working on this our rating button, and at the same time uh, put all the necessary buttons that we're supposed to have inside it, and along with the states of the application, because we need to know which number the user click on, and based on that we are going to show the result component, which is going to display the number that the user picked. But what am I talking about here? So let me open the app, or let me open this stuff again, which is going to be this interactive rating. So the design, and this is what we are trying to build here. So it's loading, and once it's done loading, we should have it on the screen there. Yeah, so this is what we are trying to build here, and we've done this section, there's text and this side, but where we need to work on now is this our rating along with the button. And once everything is completed here, then we're going to have this section, which is the result of the thank you page there, like that. But let's continue. Here we need to have a group that is going to group all these our items together here. But we already have a container that we are using in our code. Just that that container is only being used when you are placing content on top of each other. But I want this component now to be reusable. That means this container should be able to place items too side by side. Not just placing content on top of each other. We should be able to use it to place content on top of, to place them side by side. And as you can see, the only props that we are receiving here is children, which means whatever you pass under it, it will just tag them on top of each other based on our CSS that we have here, where we are displaying flex, direction is this, and the gap is this. But we want to be able to change the direction of this our component based on whether we want it to be flex or whether we want it to be row or not. So here for simple stuff, I will just receive a props here, and the props is going to be row, and by default is going to be false. And what does this mean here there? So what row is going to be there is that it's going to be that be true or false. So if it is true, we are going to change our direction to row, but if it is false, then we are not going to do anything by default. And how can we do that? So we can conditionally render our CSS too. So we can conditionally render our CSS, which is something I talked about last time. So instead of us just passing this string like this, what we can do is to put it inside the JSX expression, and at the same time use our backtick because we want to pass some JavaScript code inside the string. And what do we want to do here? What we want to do is that we want to pass the container row like this anytime this row is true. So when the row is true, we want to apply this container row, and when the stuff is false, we don't want to do anything. So which means here now we can just use JavaScript to check whether this thing is true or false. So if it is true, we want to do something, and if it's not true, we want to do another thing. So by default, if you don't supply it, it is false, like this. So which means it will not use anything. But anywhere you pass the row as true, then it's going to apply this container row like this, which is something we don't have yet in our CSS, but we are going to add it later on. And then this our box here, so we can use that container as the group for this box. So here I can use the same container, but now instead of just leaving it like this, we can now pass that props in, which is going to be row, and we are passing through like this. So which means anywhere you use this container and the row is true, you see that it will place the content side by side. But by default, it will always place content on top of each other. And that's where we have this style by default. So whether you are passing the row or not, we are going to apply this style, which is what is going to apply the flex and the gap. But we might want to change this direction later on like that. And in order for us to change it, we are applying another class here that we can use to change the direction from the default one that is here, which is container, into the one. So here now I can just have my container row, and what do you want to do there? We just want to change the flex, not this one. We just want to change the flex direction to row. And as you can see now, this our component can be reused anywhere we need to put content on top of each other, or we need to put them side by side. So this is the advantage of component. We are using it here, which is going to put the content on top of each other. The same thing here too is going to put all this content on top of each other. But here now, it's not going to put it on top of each other. It's going to put them side by side. For example, here, let me just have like 2 buttons or 3 buttons. So button that have these 3, it have 2. This one have 1, just like a demo button. But we are going to create a component for that too later on. So now save the code, go into our CSS, save that one too, and go back to the page. And as you can see now, it's placing them side by side. Why is it placing them side by side? It's because our component is receiving these props, which is row. And once you receive that props row, it will check whether it is true. If it is true, it will apply this, it will add this CSS to the list of what is going to be there. For example, here, inspecting the code and check the container that we're using to group everything together, you are going to see that it's only having container with nothing beside it. But for this one that we have down here, as you can see, the container row has been added here because we are conditionally rendering or adding the CSS to the list based on whether the row is true or false. So now if I go back, instead of applying this in, I can just give it false or even remove it, which is going to be the same thing. Going back to the page, you see that the content are now going to be stacked on top of each other. Once this thing is done loading, why is it not saved? Save and go back to the page. You see that they are now stacked on top of each other. But if you notice what we are working on, they are placed side by side, not that they are stacked on top of each other. And that's the reason why we are modifying that component to be able to place something side by side or to place them on top of each other. Instead of us creating another element here, we are reusing this our container, which is one of the reasons why we are using framework to simplify the process of us building our page. So now we only have one component, and if there's any changes, this is the only component we just changed, and wherever we are using it, it will update them instantly there like that. But this is not the button that I want to use. We already have a component for that, which is X. Where is that? Yeah, so the rating button. So the rating button here is going to be button, and what is it going to do there? So this is what we need to have. So we are going to create one, but we are going to reuse it for 2, 3, 4, 5. So which means this thing needs to receive a props for the number you want to pass inside it or what you want to display, and at the same time too, when it is clicked, you want something to happen. So we need to receive some stuff here in our component. So we need to receive the text that you want to display. Again, we need to receive the action or what is going to do anytime the button is clicked. So we need to receive something like on click here. So this on click is what is going to get called anytime the event click is fired. So I'm using the same name on the stuff. So what do we want to do here? What we want to do is that we want to pass, or instead of me just doing this, so update rating. So let me just call it this update rating number, like that. So anytime this thing is fired, or anytime this or click is fired, we want to call this our function. And how can we call it? What we can just do here is to pass this arrow function, because I don't want to call this function directly inside this box. So I only want it to be called when the or click is fired. But I need to pass something here, because whatever you want to update, we need to know the value. So after that, I'm just going to call this, then pass the text. Whatever text you send to us, that's the same thing is going to fired, or is going to send down to that function. And in front of this place, we're going to display the text. So which means whenever you are using this rating button, you can pass the text like 1, 2, 3, and so forth like that. Or you can call it number if you want, but I'm just calling it text here. And what's going to happen when the button is clicked? It will fire this arrow function. And inside the arrow function, we are calling this function that you'll be sending to us as props, and it will receive it so that you can update the state that is keeping tracking of the number or the value or the button that you click on. So saving this, but before I do that, let me add a class on it so that we can style it. Again, to the class here is going to be conditionally rendered. So we need to know which one is active at a time. So active are like this. So any one of them that is active, we know that the button is going to display a particular style. So let me go to that section so that you can see what I'm talking about. Yeah, so you can see any one of them that is clicked on or that is active, as you can see here, you see that the color is different. The one that is not active, this is it. And when it is over, this is the color there. So we need to apply all this style. When it is active, the background is this gray. When it's not active, it is this color that we have here. And how do we know whether this is the one you click on or not? So in that state, we need to receive the active number or active text that was clicked on. And based on that, we cross-check it. Does it match this text? If it is matched, then we apply a class for active. But if it doesn't match, then we don't apply a class for active. But first, we need to apply a generic class, because whether it's active or not is going to be rounded, and at the same time, the overstate is going to be there. So here, we need to apply this, our rating button. So this is the class I want to give to it. But if it is active, so how do I know that it is active? So when the text, or let's just say it's active rating like this. So if text is the same thing as active rating like that, so if it is true, what did I want to do? I just want to apply class active. But if it is not, then I don't want to do anything. So I'm conditionally apply this class active here based on whether the text you supply is the same thing as the active rating that is inside our state. So we have this button that can now be reused in this our app under this container here. So instead of us repeating ourselves by doing this thing for 5 times, we are only doing it once, and we can now reuse it based on whatever the content you supply to it. So anything that you know is going to change, you receive them as props. The one that will not change, you apply it directly inside your component. Like this one now, whether it is one that you put here or it is 2 or whatever stuff, the box is always going to be circle, the text is always going to be this. But when it is active, something is changing. So that's why we need to conditionally render this class here. Active, if it is active, do something. If it's not active, then don't add that class. Just go with the normal flow. And when the button is clicked, we want to call this one here, which is something that is going to be coming from this side later on when we create our state. But for now, let me just create the state. So the state is going to be active rating, then set active rating like this. So which is whatever the active rating that we click on. And by default, it's going to be use state of 0, because at that time, you've not rate any stuff. So this active rating now is what we are going to be passing to this button later on as this active rating. Then the function that will be updating this stuff later on is what we are going to be receiving as this update rating number. So I'll be calling this set active rating into that button later on there. So those are the two things we need right now. And what do we need to do? We just need to call that stuff how many times? We need to call it 5 times. But normally, you can use list rendering here. So instead of us just saying rating button like this and calling it 5 times, which is something you can do because 5 times is not that much, but we can actually use our list rendering because we know that this thing can go more than that later on, or it can be less. So what we can do here is to create array of numbers there. For example, here const numbers like this is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like that. And as you can see, I put it outside of my component because it's something that is not going to change. That's why I put it outside here. But you can put it inside too if you want because this is just a small stuff. But normally, if it's something that is not going to change and is not affecting anything on the page, it can actually be outside of the component. But I will move it back in like this. So what we can now do now is to loop through this stuff and we render the component and we use all this number that we pass inside it. So, and how do you do that? You can use the list rendering that we've talked about. So here we can do our numbers, then we map it into the component that we want to display. You know that we are going to receive the number, and at the same time, we are going to receive the index, but I will not receive the index. I will just use the number as the key. Because anytime you are dealing with a list rendering, it's always good that you pass a key. And what are we trying to render here? We want to render this rating button. So this rating button, we want to call it, or we want to render it for the number of items we have inside our list. But don't forget, anytime you are dealing with this thing, you need to give it a key so that React can differentiate each one of them there like that. So I'm going to pass the number because it is unique there. So this is 1, 2, 3. They are not the same thing. So it is unique. And at the same time, this component is expecting two things from us. It's expecting the text. So what is the text? It's still the same number that I receive here. And secondly, or it's even expecting three things from us. So the second thing that we need to pass is the active rating. So what is our active rating is what we have here. So like that. So it needs to know active rating so that it can check whether this one is the active one or not. And lastly, we need to pass this update rating. And what is that update rating? This is the function, because this function here is what we can use to update the state. And once this thing is passed, so which is going to be set active rating. So anytime this button is clicked, it will call that function. I'm calling it another name here, but if you want, you can set the same thing as set active rating. So instead of us calling this update rating number, I can just call it this set active rating. Doesn't matter. You can call it anything that you want, because this is just a normal name that you can use. But let me use the same name so that we don't get confused there. But you can change the name if you want, but you can actually use the same name. And now we have our rating button placed side by side, or they are going to play side by side. But right now, there is no styling on top of all these elements. We only have the element, but we don't have the style. So going back to the page of this thing, as you can see, we have the number starting from 1, 2, 3, all the way to 5. And I can update any one of them at a time. For example, if I put 11 here, this one is 22, this one is 34, this one is 41. I don't need to touch my code down there. The data is what is going to be using. So now going back to the page, you see that it will update everything automatically there. So this is the advantage of you using list rendering. You don't need to come down here again to be updating the value. You update the data that you are receiving. It can come from the backend, or it can be something you have somewhere. Then again too, you can add to the list. For example, I can add 6, I can add 8, I can add 9. And once I save this in and go back to the page, you see that it will add them to the list. I don't need to be coming down here to be doing it again and again. The data is what I will update, and where we are using it, it will update it for, because it's a list rendering. It will always redo all this thing that we have here every time the list is updated here. So it will re-render, and once you re-render, the data has changed, then it will map everything again based on the way you arrange it here, and it's going to work. But based on our application, we only need these 5 numbers that we have here. And now we need to apply the style. But I noticed something that is going on here. On desktop, this thing looks like it's at the center, but to me, it's still not centered properly. Yeah, I can see that something is wrong here on the page. So look at it. There's some extra space beside this box. So we need to check what is going on there. And what is actually going on there is this. So this is the element. This is the root. And as you can see, it's this root that is causing problem. And it's because I did not style it properly. Because on the page, this div is kind of like creating some unnecessary stuff that I don't need there. And looking at the stuff, looking at the compute, I can see that there is no padding, there is no margin, is the weight that this thing is using there. But we apply any weight somewhere to that element. So what I just do is, don't let me waste my time, just go back into the index.css where we are doing our reset. As you can see, we talked about the body, but we did not talk about anything like that element. And that element is something that is useful because that's where React is going to render all the component or the content that we want to put on our page. But in our CSS, we are not styling it at all. So it would be nice if you actually style the stuff. And as you can see, we are moving this into center and whatever stuff like that. We have this box where we give it a max width of 400. But that container is not actually having that width. So instead of all doing like that, so I can just move some of the styling from here, or what I can just do is to have this what is that? So the root like this. So the width is just going to be 100%. It's going to cover up the entire box, or it's going to cover up the entire stuff. And as you can see now, it covered up the entire stuff. So it's not that one that we need to display as flex, align items to center, and justify to center, because that's where we are putting our content. So save and go back to the page. Then this one is like this. Again, the height is not 100 VH again. So what I can just do here is to use the same minimum height of 100 VH so that it covers up the entire screen. And once we go back to the page, it will be able to place the content to the center. So now going back to the small screen, it's always going to be center because we've worked on this, our div. What we are working on before is the body. But this div, we did not do anything with it, and it's just going anyhow based on what we apply on the body. But now, whether we're on the small screen or big screen, it's always centered correctly on the page. And we have this max width of this around 4 whatever stuff that I use. But what is the screen size am I using right now? Okay, 150. This is 100%. Yeah, so it looks nice, but let me increase it so that it can show clearly on the screen there. Yeah, so we have this. So now we need to apply the style to this our element. So we need to apply the style. So I'm going to move this thing side by side so that we can see what is going on there. So what do we need first? We need this our rating button. So this is the generic one. Again, we have the rating button, then with the class active. So anytime it have class active, we want to do something. Again, too, we have this rating button like this. Anytime it is over like that, based on the style that we have here. So when it is over, this is the style. When it is active, this is the style. And when it is not, this is the basic style there. So the first thing we have here is to specify a width, or we specify the height of the box, because we want it to be circle. And you know that anytime you want something to be circle, you need to give it a definite height and width there. Then you use border radius of 50%, and it's going to turn it to a circle. But yeah, I don't know. Let me just try this 2 rem for now. Again, the width is going to be 2 rem like this. So border radius now is going to be 50%. I don't need the border on the stuff, so border is going to be none by default. Again, the color there is going to be this gray, white or so, and everything that is inside it will go to the center. So I'm going to display it as flex like this. AIC, which is align item center. JJC, which is justify content center. Text align center like this, so that the text that is inside it will always be at the center, no matter the size of the box. But the background that is here is not what we need. So let me check the color that we've already set up and pick the color. I think it's going to be this dark blue. So the color, which is going to be background color, it is going to be dark blue like this by default. That's the color that's supposed to be there. And the text is going to be this light gray. So it should be this light gray by default. So the color is going to be the light gray like this. Yes. So it's coming in bit by bit. Let me add a shadow on top of the box. So box shadow should just be 0. Come down a little bit by 2 pixels, 5 pixels. Let me put red so that you can see what is going on there. It's just going to create this shadow at the back of the box. But let me use 1 pixels just to, or let me even use 0 because it's going to fit perfectly there. And this one is too much. Let me just reduce it. But I don't want this in. Let me move it down a little bit. And this color is not going to be red. It's going to be dark color with this opacity so that it will just come out a little bit on top of the box. So let me reduce the alpha channel again. Yeah, I think it's okay. Again, by default, the button should have a cursor of pointer, which means it should kind of give us the point when it is, yeah, so it should give us this point. And when it is over, we want the background to be that our orange. So it's going to be orange like this. And at the same time, the color is going to be white. So where anytime it is over like this, so it's going to be something like this. But I think this thing is too much. This shadow that I'm applying there. Yeah, so, and let me reduce this one to 0. This one should just be 3 or so that it will fit perfectly. Yeah. So I think this one is okay, but the color is changing fast. So what we can do here is to transition the color, which is going to make sure that it takes this number of seconds to change. So what we want to change is background color, and it's going to take around 0.5 seconds to completely change the color. Yeah. So it's always going to change 0.5 seconds to update the color. So what do we want to do when it is active? We have a style for that, which is this background that we have here. So the color is going to be white. So the color is going to be white, and the background color is going to be that gray. But let me check the gray that they are using. I think it should be this medium gray. So yeah, background color is going to be medium gray like this. So any one of them that is active is going to be medium gray, but none of them is active because in our app, as you can see, the state we have 0. But the value here is 1, 2, 3, whatever stuff. So now I can just update any one of them. Maybe change it to 1. And once it's, can you see, it will make it active. So if I change it to 4, then it will see 4 as the active. But the color is not matching there. So the color is not the same. Let me check. It's the same. Yeah, it's matched. It's the same. So which means it's done. But by default, we don't have anything selected. So that's why it is 0. But when you now click on any one of them, because we've handled that already, we've handled the stuff. When the button is clicked, we are setting the active rating to whatever you pass us. So if I click on 3 now, as you can see, 3 will now be active. If I click on 2, it will remove it from 3 and it will go to 2. If I click on 5, it will remove from 2 because now active is not 2 again, it's now 5. And it's going to put it on 5. If I click on 1, the active is not 5 again, it's now 1, and so forth like that. But now we need to have the button down here, which is going to be the final part for this font side, because after the user have picked the rating, we need to submit it so that we can switch this our submitted from false to true, so that we'll be able to see the container for the results section there like that. So as you can see here now, we're able to reuse this component by applying all this in. If you want to do it, you have to write all this in again and again 5 times here without using list rendering or using component. But we just have a single component and we are reusing it on this line. And we have them on the page like this, and everything is working the way we want it to be. So we just need to put this our button, which is going to be this submit button. But do I have as a component? Do I have it as a component? Let me check. Do we create the component for that? Yeah, we actually created a component for that, which is this action button. So this one too is going to be button, we are going to give it class. This one is not doing any conditional rendering on the class. So we just call it action button like this. So and I can see some stuff that I want to do here is still the same thing as what we have on the other button. So I will go back into my CSS. We need to receive the text we want to show. So because I think I want to reuse this in other places, like that, I even want to change the style self based on. So I'm going to receive the text. So I'm going to be receiving another props here, which is to determine whether the button is going to be like this or is just going to be normal text that is going to show. So use text like this. That's just the props. So anytime you send down this use text, is going to apply a style there. So which means I need to conditionally render this style too, because I want to use that button when we get to this area there like that. So when we get to this side, even though it's not there, but I want to add it. So when we get there, we're going to add the text at the bottom here that you can click so that it will show you back that other page and you do another rating there like that. But I don't want to use this tick button like this. I just want it to be a text, but I want to reuse the stuff. I want to reuse this button. So we need to know whether we are using text only or we just want it to have that normal background. But by default, whether you are there or not, just apply this style by default. But now, if we have this use text, then we want to have this action button text like this. But if it is not, then just do nothing like that. But why is it complaining? So use text, not user text, like that. So and again, what do you want to display? We want to display whatever text that you pass into it. And at the same time, we need to receive what is going to happen when the button is clicked. So on click like this, what do you want to do? So we are going to receive it as on click. And here, anytime the button is clicked, we want to do something. So just call the on click for us. So here it is going to be on click like that. So whatever you pass into it, that's what is going to run on the button, because we want to do something when this stuff is clicked. So save, go back to the page, and inside this, after this container that we have here, we want to use our action button. So this action button too is just a self-closing tab because we are not receiving any children. We are sending it down through to text. So here, what am I passing here? Submit. Then on click, what do we want to do? What we want to do is to set submitted. So we want to set it to true. Once you click on it, it will send it to true. But this is bad here because we are not checking whether the user has already picked something or not. If they did not pick, it will be 0 that we set there. But later on, you can actually add some validation on this thing before you set it to true, that you check whether this thing is 0 or not. If it's 0, you want to show error that they've not picked anything. But if it's not 0, then you know that they've picked something from this list. But I will skip that one for now and focus on these simple cases that I have here. So going back to the page, we should have our button that is not having any style, but something is wrong here. So why is it now applying the stuff? So set action button, set on click should just be something is wrong here. So something is wrong. I'm calling the function directly, and that's the problem. So I don't need to call the function. It's when this thing is called that I want to call the function. So yeah, save the stuff, and going back to the page, reload, and we should have our normal page. So now we have the button. We need to style it so that it looks the way it's supposed to be. So going back to the CSS again, down here, we're going to have our action button, which is going to have a cursor of pointer. What I'm doing here now, I'm repeating myself. I'm supposed to do it as a generic stop at the top, but I will just leave it like that for now. So yeah, the border too, I don't need it on this one. So border radius on this is different from the top one. So this is a setting on this button, not generic to all the buttons. So I'm going to use 2 rem so that it can make it to be rounded like this. So I need padding on the stuff. So 1 rem top and bottom, then 2 rem left and right if it's not too big. But this thing is too big. Let me use 8 pixels top and bottom. like that. But because I increase the screen, it looks like it is big. It's not actually big. It's because I increase the screen. So this is the normal stuff that's supposed to be there. But let me increase it again so that we can see it clearly. So coming down here, this one too have some over state on it. So anytime the button is over, we want something to happen, which is going to be, but first, before I get there, the text decoration or the text transform rather should be uppercase, because the text we are working with is always going to be in capital letter based on the application we have here. And at the same time too, if you look at each character, there's a little bit of gap in between them. So we can do that too by using letter spacing. So the letter spacing can be used to gap each one of the text, which I'm going to use 2 pixels here as just a little bit of a space in between each character. So the background is going to be our normal orange that we have there, like that. But when this thing is, the color is white, so the color should be white. But when this thing is over, we need to flip the background and the color. So I'll copy them down here. The one that is background will be color, and the one that is color will now be background, like this. So once we go there, it will switch in this way, like that. But what if it is the other one that we want, which is this, not this rating? Let me close this one. We are done with it. So let me close this container for now too. So what if you have this action button text, we want to do something. So when we have this action button text class, we don't need anything like background. So the background color should be transparent. We don't need anything like background when it is that other one. And I can showcase it here by just coming here, use text. So once you supply it like this, you don't even need to pass anything. Anywhere you need to pass true or false, you can just supply it like this. So just like the way I'm passing this row and I'm using true or false, I don't need to even pass true like this. When you send down a props directly without passing anything in front of it, it will send it as boolean true directly. The same thing here too. Since this thing, what I just need to pass here is true, so there's a shortcut for it by not passing anything at all. So when you don't pass anything, it will send these props down as a boolean and true there, like that. So if I save, then as you can see, it will not have that background on it. And I need to fix this one too. When the stuff is over, I need to fix it. So anytime the action button text is over, we don't want that background there. So over like this, what I need is just the color. So the background too should be transparent, which I'm doing the same thing. So I'm doing the same thing here. What I can just do is to pick the 2 classes and put them side by side. So here, comma, then pass it here, because what I'm doing is just to make sure the background is transparent. So when we have this class, or when it is over, I don't need the background. So now anytime I dare, this is the pattern is going to give me like that. Or I can even reduce the padding that is there. But for now, I will just leave it like this. It will just only be the text. But for now, for this one, we don't need the text. We need the background there too. So it's going to give us this style. And the thing is too fast when it's changing. So here we can transition the stuff, but not just the color, or not just the background I want to transition. I want to transition the color too. So color like this is going to take 0.5 seconds to change. Like that. So for the background color, that one too is going to take around that 0.4 seconds. So it will take 4 seconds to change background, but the text is going to take 0.5 seconds, which is half a second, like that. So now we have all these our components joined together. Now if I click on 3 and click on submit, as you can see, it will trigger the function that we have here, which is going to be this on click. So once the thing is clicked, it will run this our function, and inside the function, what do we have there? We are setting submitted to true. And since the submitted is true, then it will see this and it will be showing this container that we have there. So the only thing we just need to do is to put the content that we have here, and we display the active rating inside the stuff. So here, I'm just going to set it to true by default so that we can work on this section too. And what do we need to do there? Nothing much. and we're not doing too much there. This is the only section that requires interaction, or that requires us to work on a component. Every other thing, we work on them before. We work on title, we work on text. This one, we just need to fix it on the page, and we are good to go, and we work on this area here. So now, let me move it to one side, and let's start applying what we need. So here we need the ATM image, we need the result box, we need the title, and we need the text. So these are the stuff that we need inside this place. So let's fix them one by one. So how can we use our image? We can use our normal tag, but I want to import it because we have it under our asset. So we have this illustration, thank you. Just like the way we are importing this star icon down here. So let me move it down. So I'm going to be importing the other one, which is going to be I'll call it this ATM machine, like this. So ATM machine, then it's not coming from here. Oh, I actually created a component for this, but this one is not going to be a component, it's just normal image. So we're going to bring in from the asset. So we are going into, so here, enter the assets. Inside the assets, we have this illustration, thank you, and now we can use it inside this image source. But you know, it needs to be a JSX expression. Then save it, go back to the screen. As you can see, we have it, but we need to style it. So I'm going to be giving it class. So class name, which is going to be ATM machine, like this. So ATM machine, like that. So after the image, the next thing we need to include is our result box. So this is a component on its own. So we have the result, what did I call it? So let me go back to the component. Component, what do we call it? We call it, yeah, result box. So why is it not importing it? Result box. So it's not also importing it. So let me do it myself, which is coming from the component. So here it's going to be this result box, which should import it for us now. Is it saying it? Yeah. So down here we can now use it. Let me collapse this section. We are done with that one. So we have the result box. Then after the result box, we need a title. And what do we need here? We just need this thank you. So we've created that component already. Title, inside it, we have a thank you. And this is the advantage of component. You create it one and you reuse it. Then after that, we have the text. We've created this one too as a component. Then we put the text that's supposed to be there. But let me get the text, which is supposed to be coming from somewhere here. Yeah. So we appreciate your so stuff. So paste it, save, and now we are done with that area. We just need to fill in our CSS. Now we have them, but it's not looking nice the way we want it to be. And at the same time too, we need to do something that we did down here. The same class that I have this container box here, I need to use it here too, because this title and text supposed to be close to each other, but it's not. So I'm going to create that one too. So container box, so that we can reuse that one too. So paste like this. So save. Then this result and this one are going to be together, but I can still see that the space is really much. So what I can just do here is that small like that, and this small is just to apply simple space in between them. So this is it, but it's not supposed to be like that. Something is definitely going on. So I don't even need to apply this like that. So let me inspect what is going on. Where is that spacing coming from? But I've done this thing, it's still not seeing it. So the container, the div, we have container box. Then inside it, I have these two. Let me reload the page because they are supposed to be close side by side. So what is going on? This stuff is not loading. Yeah, it's done. Let me check the page. Something is going on that page. So let me inspect. So we have this image. Then we have this container. What's going on? We have this container. Yeah, so as you can see, only No, it's actually working. Where's my title? Where's my title? Title, I did not put anything inside title. Title is here. How did I use the title down here? So, no wonder. That's a problem. We are supposed to pass it as a props, as a normal props, not the child props. We are passing it as children, but whereas the component is not expecting it like that. So what I need to pass here is text. So save like this. So yeah, so now everything is back because I know that it's supposed to be close to each other like that. So now we are done with that. We just need to apply our CSS. As you can see, this image is just getting out, it's just getting bigger anyhow. And at the same time, we need to work on this result box component. But first, let's start with that our image. So let's start with our image. We have this ATM machine like this. So the width of this stuff should be around that 100 pixels if it's not too big. But let me see. Yeah, I think it's okay like that. And again too, this container, everything that is inside is supposed to go to center. So we need to add another props to this container. Just like the way we have the row here, we can have center too, which is going to be first. So when it is center, it will move everything that is inside it to center. So I can add that class too at the end. I can conditionally render that one too. So if it is center, like this, we want to have a container. So container center like this, but this is not the center. Then if it is not, we don't want to do anything. So when you pass center as true there, it will attach this class there. But if it is not, it will not do anything. If there is row, it will do that one too separate, and so forth like that. Which means it can be row and at the same time center on the page. But let me close this one. We don't need it again. So going back to our CSS, going back up, just like the way we have this container row, we want to add our this container center. And what we want to do there, what we just want to do here is justify content should just be center. So JCC like this, AIC, horizontal and vertically, it's going to center it. Again, text align too, because we want all the text to be center. And once this thing is saved, it will move everything to the center of the page. But it's not going. Why? Because we've not applied the props. So here now, I can just give it that props of center. And as you can see, one single component here, we are using it for different stuff. So when it have prop center, as you can see, everything will be center. But when it doesn't have it, then it will just be the normal way it's supposed to be. But I think this card is really big, or is really much like that. So let me go to the CSS where I have limited the stuff. So where is it? So the box, we are using 400 like that. I think let me use 320. Let me see. Yeah, so this one is okay like that. I think this one is making sense. So let me increase it a little bit so that we can see what is going on. So the only thing we need to work on now is this our result box. And what is going on there is just simple styling, and it needs to receive the total number of items and the current selected rating. So it needs to know the total number of rating, and it needs to know the selected rating. So let me close this container. We don't need it right now. And let me open this result box. So inside the result box, we need to receive total. That means the total number of items, which is that out of whatever stuff. And at the same time, we need to receive the rating. So the rating is 4, then the total is 5. So inside this box here now, we just need to put you selected. So you selected rating, then out of total like this. So we can reuse this component to anywhere we need to change the rating and the total, even though the total will not be changing, but I will be receiving it as props because it's depending on the numbers here, and this number can change. So that's why we need to receive it so that we don't need to be coming here to change it. Whatever the number of items we have there, it will update this one automatically there. So what we just need to do here now is to show on the screen here. You have selected whatever stuff, but we are not passing these props. So that's why it's not showing them. So where are we using the stuff? So this is where we're using the stuff. So we need to pass the total. So what is the total? Is going to be the number dot length. So it will be picking it up automatically based on the number of our items we have inside the list. And again too, the rating is going to be that our active rating. So whatever you pick as the active rating, that's what it's going to use. And once I save, as you can see, we did not pick anything before we get to this screen. That's why it is 0 out of 5. But now if I change it to 3, you see that it will be 3. You selected 3 out of 5 and so forth like that, based on what the user selects from the page like that. So the only thing we just need to do now is to apply style to this our box, which I'm going to give it the same name. And as you can see, the way I'm creating the name for the classes, I'm using the name of the component so that it can be easier to know what the classes are there for, because I'm putting everything directly inside this index.css. So based on the name you are writing here, that you are reading here, you know that it's mapping to a particular component. But it's not a must you do it like that. You can actually use anything you want, but it's always good that you use a meaningful name. So this one is going to be a rating box. So inside the rating box, we need to apply some background here, which is this light version of this orange color there. So first, let's do the color, which is going to be this our orange like that. So that's the color. So it's going to have padding, so top and bottom like that. Dot top and bottom should just be 0.25 if it's 375 like 6. Then the left and right should just be 0.75 rem, which is 12. But let me put 6 by the side. Well, that's 6. So by the side, or the top and bottom is 6. That's 12 when you join them together. Left and right is going to be 24 when you join them together. So save, but I'm not seeing anything going on inside our box because I call this one result box and this one I'm calling it rating box. So they are not the same. So this one should be results box and save. Now we have it. So we need to have background. But the stuff here is that the background color is still the same thing as this orange. The difference is that one is light or is having this kind of it's having this lighter or it's having this opacity. So I'm going to duplicate this orange and I will call this one trans like that. For transparent, we just need to apply the transparency at the end of it, which is going to be maybe around this 0.4 like that. And what this one will do is that it will create the alpha channel. As you can see, we will be able to see through what is at the back of that color. So here we're just going to have the background color like that, and it's going to be this orange trans, which is for transparent like that. So save, and as you can see, it's transparent, but it's not that like the one we have there. So let me use 0.1 like this. Yeah, so I think this 0.1 is okay. Then we need to have border radius. So border radius is going to be 2 rem because I think it is rounded throughout. So save, yeah, it's actually rounded like that. And once you get to the page, what's going on, 2 rem, then we are going to have our rating box. And now we have our complete application where this thing is going to be false by default like that, even though the application is not handling any error right now, because if you don't pick anything and you just submit it, as you can see, they can still select 0 out of 5. But it would be nice when you show the error to them that they have to pick something before they can continue. But before I complete this stuff, let me go back to that page. I said I wanted to add something at the end here. So let me just copy this action button again like that. And at the end of this div, I want to have it down here. But this is not what I said I want there. So this is going to be try again. So which means you want to do it again. But now it's going to be use text because we don't want it to be this. You can see that that button is not looking nice. It will be better if it's just normal this thing here. And again, I can see that that thing is too big. So it's better we reduce the text when we have this action button text. So what I want to do is that the font size should just be this point. It just be 12 pixels like that. So 75 rem by default. So it's going to make this thing to be smaller compared to the other text on the screen. So now if you click on, instead of me reloading the page, what I just need to do is to click on this thing to try again. But it will not work. Why will it not work? Because I'm still passing through here. What I'm supposed to pass is false. So which means once you click on this try again, it will update this state to false. And once it's false, it will not see everything here again. It will not see that rating. And again too, another thing we need to do is that we need to clear the active rating that the user selected. It's not just you setting this into false. There are two things that needs to happen. So I'm going to create a function here because that thing is not getting more than one line. So what I will do is try again. So this is the function is going to call. And anytime you call this try again, what it's going to do is that it's going to set the submit to rate to false, and it's going to set the active one like that. So what we just need to do is to call this function instead of calling this one. And I don't need to pass this one like this too, because I'm not passing any option. So I just need to pass the name. It will be the one that will call it automatically. Because I'm not passing anything, that's why I'm not calling it. The reason why I call this one there is because we need to pass something into it like that. But this one we don't need to pass anything, so on click we call it directly. So save like this. Then going back to the screen, once you click on this try again, it will go back to this page. If you click 4 and you submit, it will now be you selected 4 out of 5. And if you try again, as you can see, that selection has been reset back to 0, because we don't want to come back here and be seeing 4 selected. You want to try again, so we should clear everything. So pick one and click on it. It will be you selected 1 out of 5. And as you can see here, we are able to build this simple stuff we can which is something that we can even extend. So I can add the rating up to 6, and once I go back to the page, you see that it will update the count, and that's this one I'm receiving total inside this stuff, so that anytime the data change, I don't need to go to the component to update it or to update the hard coded value. Since it can change, I've already handled the stuff, and as you can see here too, it have added the 6 to the list, because here now I can pick 6 and go there now 6 out of 6 and so forth like that. So we're able to do all this thing with just creating our components, then using them and reuse some of them anywhere we need them. But you can do this into with your normal HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. It will work, but you're going to be doing some repetition there like that. And then when you want to do changes, you need to really do it in some different places. And again too, the way we are just attaching event listener to our element like this and passing it around, you are going to do a lot of work in JavaScript to be able to do something like this there like that. So this is where I'll be stopping, and I think I've sent this in to you. You too, you are going to work on it from your side. That's the assignment. You too, you are going to work on it from your side. I'm going to send the assets to you. I'm going to send all the files to you. So you are going to set up the project, and you too, you are trying to create it using your own knowledge. You watch my video, but you do things in your own way. That's how you learn. You can still follow this one and type it, but don't do copy and paste. But I will advise you to try to do some of these things, or rename them, or change the name, or do them in another way based on your own understanding. And that's how you are going to master this thing there. So I will forward the assets to you. Where are you? What's this thing? So I will forward the asset to you. Let me stop the recording.